Hey, this is Sunday Holland Jones, and I would like to talk to you today about redefining normal, a case for inclusion. I will talk about the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio and an article by Jen Scott Curwood. In this article, Jen Scott Curwood promotes the idea of counter narratives being composed and shared within schools that they can promote social justice in a powerful way. Reading her article, Redefining Normal, a critical analysis of disability in young adult literature, before I read Wonder, I thought it was a pretty good article. I read the article after I read Wonder because the books that she had used for her argument, I had never read those books. But putting the book Wonder into perspective with her analysis brought it to light. And three important lessons that I did learn from reading this article and reading this book and some other books we've read this semester. I've learned that as an educator, we should use critical pedagogy as a platform for students to question, analyze, and transform cultural ideologies and social practices. Through their reading, their analysis, their social skills that they use to work on projects together. This is very important. I've also learned that learning about social justice in the world and engaging in literary study can be a powerful way for youth to critically consider disability. Now, I knew this about other issues, historical issues, and things of the past that kids might not know about, and things that kids are dealing with social media and things like that. I knew that a literary study could be used to help kids to renegotiate their thinking on this, but I had not thought about the use of it to reconsider their viewpoints on disability. And shifting away from the coming of age studies and stories to a focus on themes of fitting in, finding oneself, and dealing with crisis to a literature about disability and difference, yes, I've learned that it can be a powerful tool to heighten the achievement of all students by broadening attitudes and perceptions of self and others. Now, I would like to focus on Jack's letters, Miss Albin's letter, and Mr. Tishman's letter, and John and Amanda Will's letters in R.J. Palacio's Wonder. These letters really struck me on my first reading of this book. Leading up to the letters, Jack has struggled with his friendship with Augie, and he wasn't a good friend to Augie behind his back, and he has hurt Augie's feelings. And he finds out about this, but he doesn't know how to fix it. In the meantime, Julian says something that's putting Augie down, and Jack punches him in the face. Jack gets in trouble at school, and he's suspended from school for punching another student, which is Julian. Jack is home, he's suspended, and he writes this letter and says, I'm very, very sorry. It's to Mr. Tishman. I'm very, very sorry for punching Julian. It was very wrong of me to do that. And he says he's writing Julian a letter as well, but he doesn't want to tell Mr. Tishman what the reason was that he hit Julian. He writes Julian the apology letter and tells him he's sorry for hitting him and he hopes his tooth grows back soon. In the meantime, Mr. Tishman writes back to Jack and he says that he appreciates him writing to him and that he believes him, that he's sorry, and he understands him not wanting to tell him why. But he has a clue about why he has punched Julian. And he tells him to keep up the good work and keep being the fine boy that we all know you are. Well, Miss Albin, Julian's mom, has spoken with Jack's parents, Amanda and John Will, and her husband decide that they will write Mr. Tishman a letter as well. They write Mr. Tishman a letter letting him know that they believe that Jack is a good boy and that he has learned his lesson about hitting a child and that they believe he should be allowed to come back to Beecher Prep because he is normally a very good boy. But she goes on to tell Mr. Tishman, this is on page 162, to that end, I wonder if Jack's unexpected violent behavior might have been a result of too much pressure being placed on his young shoulders. I'm specifically speaking of the new child with special needs who both Jack and Julian were asked to befriend. In retrospect, having now seen the child in question at various school functions and the class pictures, I think it may have been too much for our children to be able to process all that. Certainly, when Julian mentioned he was having a hard time befriending the boy, we told him he was off the hook in that regard. We think the transition to middle school is hard enough without having to place greater burdens or hardships on these young, impressionable minds. I should also mention, as a member of the school board, I was a little disturbed that more consideration was not given to this child's application process, the fact being that Beecher Prep is not an inclusion school. She lets him know that other parents feel the same way. Well, Mr. Tishman, he writes back to the Albans, and he lets her know that he's heard her concerns and that he does agree with her that Jack Will is extremely sorry for his actions and that he will be returning to Beecher Prep. As for her concerns regarding the new student, August, he says, please note that he does not have special needs. He is neither disabled, handicapped, nor developmentally delayed in any way. So there is no reason to assume anyone would take issue with his admittance to Beecher Prep, whether it's an inclusion school or not. And he goes on to justify his way that he handled interviewing him. And then he also adds, I did not think asking these children to be especially kind to a new student would place any extra burden or hardship on them. In fact, I thought it would teach them a thing or two about empathy, friendship, and loyalty. Well, after reading the novel, I agree with Mr. Tishman that asking these kids to be kind to him could and did teach some lessons about empathy, friendship, and loyalty. Not only did they learn these lessons, so did a lot of the parents, a lot of the teachers, and Mr. Tishman himself. As the school year was wrapping up and the kids were working out their own differences, the ones that had chosen this side or the other were finally friending Augie and not choosing sides anymore. And the kids get to their awards day, their graduation ceremony from 5th to 6th grade, and all the normal awards were given out, and the kids who were expected to receive these awards received them for their hard work. Well, as the award show is wrapping up, there's one award left, and it's the Henry Ward Beecher Award. And Mr. Tishman is giving the speech about it, and he says that he decided to check out Henry Ward Beecher, since that's who the award was given in honor of. And he finds that this 19th century abolitionist was a really good man. And he says that he preached about some of the same things he's been trying to get in these students' heads and some of the parents all year. He said not just the nature of kindness, but the nature of one's kindness, the power of one's friendship, the test of one's character, the strength of one's courage. He went on to talk about the strength of one's courage, and he said courage, kindness, friendship, character, these are the qualities that define us as human beings and propel us on occasion to greatness. And that is what the Henry Ward Beecher Medal is about, recognizing greatness. He says we can't measure greatness with a yardstick. How do we even define it? Well, Beecher actually had an answer for that. He puts on his reading glasses again, and he begins to read. Greatness, wrote Beecher, lies not in being strong, but in the right using of strength. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts. And he got a little choked up, and then he went on. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts by the attraction of his own. Without further ado, this year I'm very proud to award the Henry Ward Beecher Medal to the student whose quiet strength has carried up the most hearts. So will August Pullman please come up here to receive this award? August goes up to receive this award. He goes up with a standing ovation. Everyone is on their feet and hooting and hollering and clapping and whistling. And he cannot believe that there is a standing ovation for him. And as he's up there, he thinks, to me, though, I'm just me, an ordinary kid. But hey, if they want to give me a medal for being me, that's okay. I'll take it. I didn't destroy a Death Star or anything like that, but I did just get through the 5th grade, and that's not easy. even if you're not me. So not only has Mr. Tushman and the parents and a lot of the teachers and administrators and the other students learned a good lesson, Augie's learned a lesson too. He's realized that fifth grade, school, teenager, preteen, and young adulthood is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. It's not just hard for him. He realizes that getting through fifth grade was tough on everyone. They all had their issues to face. They all had their things to deal with. And as they're walking home after the awards show, he catches up with his mom and he tells her, "Thank you for making me go to school." And his mom leans down and she whispers to him, this is on the last page of the book, "You really are a wonder, Augie. You are a wonder." Now, his mom learned some hard lessons too, and his dad. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of strength for them to stand up and watch their son go through what he did. And as a parent, we can learn from their struggle. But I want to leave this part of my speech with Augie Pullman's precept. He says everyone in the world should get a standing ovation at least once in their life because we all overcome the world. Now, from what little nuggets I've taken out of wonder and I've placed in consideration with Curwood's article, Redefining Normal, it is apparent that critical literacy draws attention to the ways in which identity, agency, and power operate in young adult literature. The reaction as a reader that you have while reading from this young man's viewpoint, not only do you see things through his identity, you see things through the other characters' identity throughout the book and how they view Augie, how he views himself, and how everyone deals with each other. And by using critical questions to guide in-depth literary analysis, students can definitely gain insight into how authors craft normalcy narratives and disability counter-narratives. You could take a normal Bildungsroman text and you could pair it with this one, and students could write for days on the things that are alike and the things that are disliked, which leads us into the process that encourages students to question binary oppositions evident in both literature and society, such as normal, abnormal, rich, poor, straight, gay, male, and female. The binaries are infinite and they are endless, and it's the best way to get students talking, to get students thinking, which may bring about change and encouragement and be good for all.